In 1977, Soviet Union, fathers were forbidden from entering maternity wards, separated from their newborns by hospital protocol and thick glass windows. This anonymous father found his way to express overwhelming love through the simplest gesture, a thumbs up and radiant smile that needed no words. Behind him, winter trees stand bare, but inside this frame blooms the warmest human emotion, a parent meeting their child for the first time, even if only through a pane of glass. The photograph captures not just a moment, but the ingenious ways people create a connection despite the physical and institutional barriers of their time. August 1960. Belka the dog has just returned from space after completing 18 orbits around Earth in the Soviet spacecraft Korabl Sputnik 2. Inside her pressurized helmet, still attached to life support systems, she appears exhausted, yet remarkably composed after a journey that took her farther from home than any dog had ever traveled. Together with Strelka, 40 mice, 2 rats, and various plants, Belka proved that living beings could survive the brutal conditions of space travel and safe return. This photograph, taken moments after landing in the Soviet steppe, shows not a hero in the human sense, but an unwitting pioneer whose calm eyes had witnessed the curve of Earth against the cosmos. Just months later, Yuri Gagarin would follow the path these dogs had proven possible, making Belka and Strelka the unsung architects of human spaceflight. May 1945. After 4 years of silence, a mother sees her son step off the train at a provincial Soviet station. The war has aged them both. Her hair turned white from worry, his eyes carrying memories he'll never fully share. In this embrace captured by an unknown photographer, time collapses. She holds not the soldier before her, but the boy who left, while he clings to the only certainty that survived the war, home. Around them, dozens of similar reunions unfold, each family reclaiming what Hitler's armies tried to destroy. Of the 27 million Soviet citizens who perished, this soldier was not one. And in his mother's tears flow both grief for those who didn't return and overwhelming gratitude that her prayers were answered. 1963. The modern world arrives in a remote Soviet village through a single black telephone mounted on a wooden wall. For these elderly residents, many who've never travelled beyond neighbouring towns, the device represents something almost magical. The ability to hear a daughter's voice from hundreds of miles away in real time. The woman holding the receiver struggles to comprehend how sound travels through wires, her face mixing confusion with wonder. Behind her, neighbours wait their turn, some sceptical, others eager to experience this miracle themselves. Within a generation, their grandchildren would carry computers in their pockets. But this moment, humanity's first conversation with distance collapsed, held a magic that repetition would eventually erase. The photograph preserves what we've forgotten. There was a time when hearing a loved one's voice across space seemed like sorcery. June 1972. After 43 years, Maria Petrovna Sokolova stands in her classroom for the final time, the echo of children's voices still lingering in the silence. The chalkboard holds her last mathematics lesson, equations that hundreds of students learned in this very room before carrying that knowledge into the world. She remembers the first day, 1929, when she was barely older than her students, teaching the children of peasants and workers in a country rebuilding itself. Wars came and went, Regimes changed, but every September brought new faces, new hopes, new futures she helped shape. The empty desks now seem like artifacts, each one holding invisible memories of daydreams, first loves, whispered secrets, and moments of understanding when difficult concepts suddenly became clear. Tomorrow, a younger teacher will occupy this space, but tonight, in the slanting afternoon light, it belongs only to memory and the profound quiet of endings. Behind the sequins and spotlight, 1958. Between performances at a traveling Soviet circus, a family exists in two worlds: the magical realm audiences see and the unglamorous reality of constant travel, practice, and exhaustion. The young daughter, barely 8, practices her handstand with the casual perfection of someone born into this life, while her parents rest on the costume trunk that serves as furniture, storage, and sometimes dinner table. Her mother's stage makeup is cracking, her father's smile temporarily retired until the next show. They're part of an ancient tradition, carrying skills passed down through generations, living nomadic lives that most settled people romanticize, but few would actually choose. Yet there's profound love in this frame, not just between family members, but for the art itself. The commitment to beauty and wonder that requires sacrificing the ordinary comforts most people take for granted. In 2 hours, they'll dazzle a crowd of hundreds. Right now, they're simply tired artists, and somehow that makes their nightly transformation even more remarkable. In a provincial library, 1968, Anna Mikhailovna tends to books like a doctor treats patients. For 35 years, she's been the guardian of this collection, cataloguing, repairing, and most importantly, remembering. She knows which volumes survived the war hidden in basements, which were donated by families of the deceased, which contain marginalia from readers long dead. The book before her, its spine cracked and pages loosening, receives her careful attention, needle, thread, and patience, restoring what careless hands damaged. In an era of mass production, her work seems quaint, even futile, but she understands something profound. Books are time machines, and everyone she saves preserves a voice that would otherwise fall silent. Around her, the library breathes with accumulated knowledge, science, poetry, history, dreams, all waiting for readers who may never come, or who may arrive tomorrow and have their lives changed forever. She'll retire next year, but tonight, under a single lamp's glow, she practices a dying art, preserving memory against entropy's patient erosion. 1890. In a Japanese photography studio, a woman stands wrapped against winter's chill in traditional layered robes and head covering, her umbrella ready for snow or rain. This hand-tinted photograph represents a unique moment in history, the Meiji era, when Japan was simultaneously preserving ancient customs and embracing Western innovations like photography. The photographer carefully applied watercolor pigments to the black and white print, adding soft hues to her garments and the surrounding plants, creating an image that feels both documentary and dreamlike. Her expression is serene yet penetrating, embodying the grace and resilience expected of women in her society. Within a generation, Western-style clothing would become increasingly common in Japanese cities, making photographs like this precious records of traditional aesthetics. Yet something timeless persists in this frame, the quiet dignity of someone facing winter's harshness with beauty and preparation. a universal human gesture across all cultures and eras. The 1970s. Two leaders from opposite sides of the globe meet, Saddam Hussein of Iraq and Fidel Castro of Cuba, united by their defiance of Western powers and shared socialist rhetoric. In this candid moment, Castro gestures with his signature cigar, while Hussein listens intently. Both men representing nations that positioned themselves against American influence during the Cold War. Their meeting symbolizes how ideology created unlikely partnerships. An island nation 90 miles from Florida, finding common cause with a Middle Eastern state thousands of miles away. These connections formed a network of mutual support, diplomatic recognition, economic cooperation, military training that shaped global politics for decades. Whatever history's judgment of these men, this photograph captures the human reality beneath political labels. Two leaders engaged in earnest conversation, building alliances that would influence their regions long after this moment passed. The image reminds us that history is made not just by grand ideologies, but by personal connections between individuals who wielded enormous power over millions of lives. 1955, a Russian village kitchen. Weathered hands guide small fingers through dough, as a grandmother passes down knowledge that predates written recipes. The exact feel of properly kneaded bread, techniques learned from her own grandmother decades ago. This simple act connects generations across time. The same movements, the same flour, the same love transformed into daily sustenance. In an era of rapid industrialization and collectivization, these intimate kitchen lessons preserved cultural memory that no ideology could replace. The girl would one day teach her own granddaughter, continuing an unbroken chain of knowledge stretching back centuries, proving that history lives not just in monuments and documents, but in the muscle memory of ordinary people performing extraordinary acts of continuity. Moscow, 1967. Minutes before curtain call at the Bolshoi Theatre, a ballerina sits alone with her thoughts and battered point shoes, the tools of her art that have left her feet bleeding and transformed. Years of brutal training, 6 hours of daily practice, sacrificed childhood, all compressed into the few minutes she'll spend on stage tonight. Her elaborate costume and stage makeup contrast with the exhaustion in her eyes, revealing the gap between the effortless grace audiences see and the physical suffering that creates it. In Soviet culture, ballet represented artistic excellence and national pride. But this private moment shows the human cost behind cultural glory. When she steps into the spotlight, pain will transform into beauty. And for those brief minutes, the sacrifice will seem almost worth it. New York City, 1922. A letter arrives from the old country, pages worn from the long journey across the Atlantic, written in Yiddish by a daughter who couldn't emigrate. The elderly woman reads by window light, her tears falling onto words describing a life she left behind, grandchildren she'll never hold, a village that no longer feels like home, a family fractured by borders and circumstance. Immigration promised opportunity, but delivered permanent separation in an era before phone calls or affordable travel. The photographs on her wall show faces frozen in time, aging only in her imagination. This moment captures the immigrant experience's deepest cost, not poverty or prejudice, but the irreversible severing of roots. The knowledge that home exists now only in memory and these precious, painful letters. Late evening, 1971. Conductor Ivan Stepanovich makes his final journey on the number 12 tram route. The same route he's worked for 38 years, longer than many of his passengers have been alive. He knows every stop, every regular rider, every quirk of these aging streetcars rumbling through the city. Tomorrow, new electric trolley buses will replace these vintage trams, efficiency overriding nostalgia. He remembers his first day, 1933, when Stalin's industrialization was transforming the nation and driving a tram felt like piloting the future. Now that future has arrived and moved past him, rendering both man and machine obsolete. As the city lights streak past the windows one last time, he carries not bitterness, but quiet dignity, a worker whose small role in history is ending without ceremony or recognition, like most lives end, with a final shift, a farewell nobody notices. Lake Baikal, 1963. 3 generations work together, mending fishing nets on the ancient lake's shore, continuing a way of life that predates Soviet power, the Russian Empire, even written history in these remote Siberian waters. The grandfather's hands, calloused from decades of ropes and cold water, guide his grandson's fingers through the intricate knots that hold nets together, techniques unchanged for centuries. Around them, the family works in practiced silence, each person knowing their role in the seasonal rhythm of fishing, mending, surviving. In a nation obsessed with industrial progress and collective farms, these families represent a continuity with the past that ideology couldn't fully erase. The boy learning these knots will be the last generation to fish this way. Modernization and tourism will transform Baikal within decades. But in this moment, time feels suspended, ancient knowledge passing between hands, the eternal lake witnessing one more cycle in the endless story of humans harvesting its depths. 1839. Dorothy Catherine Draper becomes one of the first women ever photographed, sitting motionless in bright sunlight for nearly 10 minutes, while her brother's experimental camera captures her image on a silver-coated copper plate. The elaborate bonnet shielding her eyes from the harsh light, the flowers adorning her hair, the ruffled white dress, all frozen in time through a chemical miracle barely understood even by those creating it. Before this moment, only the wealthy could afford painted portraits. Now, technology promised to preserve anyone's likeness for eternity. Dorothy couldn't have imagined that 185 years later, billions of people would carry devices capable of capturing thousands of images instantly, that her patient pose would seem almost impossibly still to generations accustomed to motion and video. Yet something timeless persists in her steady gaze, the universal human desire to be remembered, to leave proof of existence, to whisper across centuries, I was here, I lived, I mattered. This fragile, fading image represents photography's revolutionary promise that ordinary people, not just kings and queens, deserve to be remembered by history. Berlin, August 1936. Hungarian athlete Ibolya Czak raises her hand in victory after winning Olympic gold in high jump, her smile radiating genuine joy despite the oppressive political atmosphere surrounding these games. Hitler had designed this Olympics as a showcase for supposed racial superiority, transforming sport into propaganda theatre with massive swastika banners and carefully orchestrated ceremonies. Yet athletes like Czak disrupted that narrative simply by excelling, proving that human achievement recognizes no borders or ideologies. The packed stadium, the Nazi flags in the background, the watching officials, all fade before her moment of personal triumph. This photograph captures something Hitler couldn't control: the universal language of athletic excellence and the unscripted human emotion of someone who worked years for this single moment. Jark's victory, like those of Jesse Owens and other athletes who defied the game's intended message, reminds us that individual achievement can quietly subvert even the most totalitarian spectacles, that a raised hand in celebration can be more powerful than a raised hand in salute. Soviet Airfield, 1938. Marina Raskova stands beside her aircraft, one of the pioneering female pilots who shattered assumptions about women's capabilities in the most male-dominated field imaginable. In an era when most countries barely allowed women to drive cars, Soviet aviation schools were training women to fly combat missions, navigate by stars, and command bomber crews. Her confident stance and direct gaze reveal someone who's proven herself through skill, not rhetoric, logging hundreds of flight hours, mastering aerobatics, earning respect through competence. Within 3 years, war would transform these pioneering aviators into combat legends, flying night bombing missions that terrified German troops who nicknamed them night witches. But in this peaceful moment before the storm, she represents pure possibility, the exhilarating freedom of defying gravity and social expectations simultaneously, proving that courage recognizes no gender. Harlem, late night 1958. In a basement jazz club, thick with cigarette smoke and possibility, musicians pour their souls into instruments while a diverse crowd listens in reverent silence. These clubs were more than entertainment venues. They were sanctuaries where artistic brilliance could flourish despite the segregation and racism that constrained Black Americans everywhere else. The saxophone player, sweat glistening under stage lights, transforms pain and joy into notes that need no translation, speaking directly to human experience. Here, in these small, crowded rooms, some of history's greatest musicians refined the art form that became America's most original cultural contribution. The audience, dressed in their finest despite modest means, understood they were witnessing something sacred, the nightly miracle of improvisation, where skilled artists created beauty that existed only in that moment, never to be exactly repeated, as ephemeral and precious as life itself. Moscow, 1965. An elderly seamstress works at her sewing machine by the window of a Soviet apartment block, her skilled hands guiding fabric with the precision that comes from 50 years of practice. Outside, identical concrete buildings stretch to the horizon, the mass housing that solved homelessness but erased individuality. Yet here, in this small window frame, individuality persists through craft. She sews custom dresses, alters ill-fitting state-produced clothing, repairs what factory goods cannot replace, maintaining the old tradition of made-to-measure garments in an age of standardization. Her neighbors climb 5 flights of stairs, bringing fabric and hope, leaving with clothes that actually fit their unique bodies. This photograph captures resistance through mundane acts. In a system designed for uniformity, she creates uniqueness, one stitch at a time. The sewing machine's rhythm, unchanged since her grandmother's time, connects past to present, proving that some human needs for beauty, individuality, clothing that feels like it belongs to you, survive every revolution and ideology.